I heard you missed us. We're back. I brought my pet. Oh, just get on with it, man. Hello. You're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. All right, I got to start this one off with a caveat, okay? Actually, a couple of caveats. Number one, the first caveat, is I'm not 100% sure my microphone is working properly, okay? So it might sound just a little bit weird, and I hope it doesn't, because I know I seem calm, cool, and collected, kids, all right? But when it doesn't sound right, drives me a little bit crazy, okay? That is the semi-professional in me. So if it doesn't sound right, I think there's something out with my microphone, and I apologize for that in advance, all right? Now, caveat number two is that this is going to be a pretty loose presentation, okay? Now, the last few episodes, our forays into superficial histories were very researched, very structured, and, presented, right? At least I tried to make them that way, all right? I tried to keep them semi-formal, but there was a coherent and a consistent topic happening, and I presented on those topics, all right? Today, something more like a grab bag, all right? Hope that's okay. If you like the more formal episodes, I hope you hang with this one, but it ain't going to be like that. And if you're new to the program, it's going to seem a little bit hodgepodgey to you. We do a hodgepodge once in a while, all right? Sometimes in life, kids, if I've learned anything, I've learned that you got to do a hodgepodge. But if you're new to the program and you like your podcasts a little more structured and a little more linear, check out the last few episodes where I did some histories, okay? Now, I said on the last episode, which is like nigh on 7 weeks ago, time flies, kids, that I might disappear for a bit because I had some road work to do, okay? And I can say now that the road work in question was just about 6 solid weeks in Europe with the great Sarah Smith, okay? Went off to Germany, went off to Netherlands, played something like 30 freaking shows in almost 6 weeks. And, people say to me, hey man, now that I'm home, they say, hey man, how was the tour? And how do you answer that, man? How was the tour? The tour was great. Tour was good. Tour was fun. Played some nice rooms. See, a tour like that, 30 shows, 6 weeks, 2 countries, driving, everything right in your face kind of the whole time, life heightened. You experience like a year in 6 weeks, man, and you will experience all of the things, all right? Elation, depression, frustration, extreme happiness, bit of sadness, in some sort of lukewarm in the middle. Like, you'll experience all the things for many different reasons. It is life condensed, okay? And life condensed is all the things. But, by and large, fundamentally, the tour was good, man. Sarah has reached a level now over there, building the fan base, one show, one tour at a time, where we're beginning to really get into some nice rooms, okay? Now, we played an ice cream shop, and we played like a chocolate place, cool little vibey spaces. We also got into some theaters. We got into, for the second time, a castle in Hardegsen, Germany that's 1,000 years old and is kind of mind-blowing. So, we're pushing like 60, 70, 80, 100 seaters. Nice, right? Playing some little clubs, play some rock clubs. The venues are all over the place, literally and figuratively. No matter what metrics you're trying to use, the venues are kind of all over the place, but generally speaking, really, really super nice venues with, get this, kids, actual audiences. Now, those of us who are in Canada it seems like a foreign concept, literally foreign in this case, to have indoor venues with indoor audiences. Whoa, mind-blowing, right? We haven't really caught up to that yet. And in the Netherlands, stuff is wide freaking open, man. Like, no masks. Gotta wear a mask at the airport, okay? Gotta wear a mask on public transit. Otherwise, wide open, man. No capacity limits, no masks. Away we go. You know what I mean? And so we played rooms in the Netherlands that were packed out like the old days, man. The old days like 2 years ago. Because it feels like we've gone over like a historical divide. And so the old days can be 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Germany, a little tighter. A little tighter there. Some masks happening. Got to wear the masks inside. Checking your vax papers, that kind of stuff. Much like Canada, but you can get into rooms. And I don't think we had to deal really with capacity limits much. Might have been a couple of shows where things were reduced. But I distinctly remember us playing sold-out rooms, and so they put in everybody they could. Or maybe it was the capacity was limited and we sold that out. I can't remember. What I do remember is that we had audiences, all right? Everywhere we went, we had real audiences, including, the growing army of Sarah's super fans who treat us so well and do so much for us and make these tours possible, And they load out our gear and they bring us stuff like rood wine, and the great Nikki DiMampi made me drumsticks, man. Like legit. Got 2 hunks of hickory, put them on a wood lathe, made me drumsticks that I actually played a show with that were dynamite. All right, did this out of artistic curiosity and affection. Artistic curiosity and affection are potent things, man. So the fans look after us like crazy. And they're so generous. And they took us to places. We got to do some fun side trips like Nuremberg and places like that to see old stuff. Old rocks, as our friend Shimmy says. But really, really freaking cool. So we had a good dang time, okay? And I can't expand on that much. But what I did, anticipating questions, kind of about the tour, I put it out on the socials and I said, hey, I'm doing a podcast episode. I'm back in the saddle. Difficult to be, by the way, back in the saddle. It's hard to resume life, but we'll talk about that. Put out the call and I said, hey, who's got questions about the tour or about drumming or about podcasting or about anything, really? I'm a semi-open book, okay? You can open to a lot of the pages. Read what you like. So I just say, let's just do a podcast questions episode, all right? An episode of questions. And that's what this is going to be. So that's why I say this is not a structured episode. This is very loose. This is not linear. This is not a superficial history, okay? But I put out questions. People wanted to know a little bit of stuff about touring, and this tour specifically. So I thought, hey, man, let's just answer some of the questions. Sounds like fun, right? So if you've never been on a European tour or even a North American tour at the indie level, I've been able to do both. I'm very, very lucky, by the way. And I'm very, very grateful to Sarah and others like Carly Thomas who have taken me on the road. And I do appreciate those opportunities, okay? So let's talk a little bit about what that's like at the indie van level out there on the road. So I just put it out there. I had some people send in some questions. I'm going to try to answer some of them, okay? And here we go. So my good friend James, who I've known for a very, very long time, and who is an avid listener to the podcast. Thank you for that, James. James says to me, hey, get this, kids. James says, tell us where you played and what you did and about the people you met. Do a podcast episode where you talk about where you played and what you did and who you met. And I'll tell you straight up, that would take a lot of podcast episodes, man. And to be perfectly honest, I can't remember a lot of it. All right? What I've done in the past, this is my 4th European tour with Sarah, okay? in the past, and you can still see this, I've done a daily tour blog for every one of those tours. Began in 2017, did the original Sarah Smith Euro Tour blog. Blogged every day about what we were doing. That was a month. That became a published book called November, A Month in Europe with Sarah Smith, of which we still have copies if you're interested. That is the kind of massaged and edited version of the first tour blog. The first tour blog, as it was actually written, still exists on my website, john-huff.com/tour blog, I think, but you can follow the links. So that is there. The actual book has like a foreword and an afterword, epilogue. It's got contributions from Sarah and Ken and Denny, who were in the original touring band over there. So there's some extras, edited and with extras. But the original raw material you can still read on my website, all right? The 2017 blog. I did another one in 2018. I did another one in 2019. And these are just a daily recap of what we did the day before. And then some insights on touring and some insights on music and some insights on life, such as I have insights, you know what I mean? And so I did that. And if you go to my website, you can find there just about 100,000 words of stuff about the European touring experience that we've had in the past. Now, I chose this time not to do that. Why? Because it takes one hell of a lot of work to do a daily tour blog, man. So I'm cranking out 1,000 words a day on stuff. And the problem is that takes a ton of time. And then you've got to edit that stuff. You've got to find ways to upload that stuff. It takes time. I would normally write in the van as we drive, right? And then we get to the hotel, wherever we're going, and I got to scramble that stuff up onto the website. And I thought this time, rather than writing about the experience and in some ways kind of missing the experience, this time I would just have the experience. And so this time around, when, in the past I might have been in my room writing a tour blog or trying to upload a tour blog, I could be in the town square drinking a coffee. In the past couple of years, since the COVID hit, I've had to stop and take a look at what I'm doing, man. And sometimes I just want to make the memories. Sometimes I just want to go there and have the experience, man, because you don't know, especially as a side player in the indie world, you don't know how many chances you're going to get, man. When we went in 2017, I never imagined at that time that there would be 4 Euro tours. I just went thinking it might be one and done, man. How many chances do you actually get? How many chances do most people get to do something like that? So I thought I'm going to tour blog it because A, that's fun and supports Sarah, right? And her fans can follow along and they can interact and they can feel like they're on the tour. And it was a really nice sort of connection for her to her fans in North America, right? But also for me, it was a way to capture the experience, And I got to be honest, I did that in November of 2017. And then we put the book together the following kind of late winter, spring. And so I went back and I read through all the stuff and I edited the stuff, to put it in order, added pictures, whatever. It's like I had forgotten a lot of things, a lot of cool stuff I had forgotten and would have been lost forever had I not written the tour blog, So that's a really useful thing to do. But this time around, I just wanted to experience. I didn't want to have to get hung up on writing the stuff. I was feeling I had to be very, very careful. All right, we're getting deep here. All right, we're jumping in 14 minutes back after a little hiatus and we're going deep. But as you know, last summer, I had the troubles. I had the troubles last summer. Anxiety, bit of an ego breakdown, had to rebuild myself. I had to look very closely at my motivation for things. And I think the original tour blog was purely motivated, and the next tour blog was, kind of the 2018 one was responding to an expectation. And then by the 2019 one, you're running into 2 problems. You're writing, tour life is Groundhog Day, all right? For the most part. The venues and the cities may change, but the experience is much the same. It's like, what more can I say about it that I haven't said already, you know? But then I began to get a little bit upset because there were fewer and fewer people reading the thing. Because, probably, it says what it says 2 years ago. It's just the name of the venue changed. I didn't have a whole lot more insight to give you. Like, this is the game, man. And so I had to really question if I was going to do another tour blog, whether this would just be ego massaging or whether I would be doing it for purpose, you know what I mean? And I decided I wasn't quite sure about that, and I would rather just go this time and experience the tour as it is, you know what I mean? Be in the moment and do that. And I know I'm going to suffer consequences of sorts. I know this academically. There will be stuff that I've already forgotten. The lucky thing is, if I've forgotten it, then I've forgotten that I knew it. So I may not miss it necessarily. I didn't even take a lot of pictures, okay? I did not do a lot of social media posting about this. I did not want this to be an ego thing, and I did not want to draw attention to myself. As much as I could, I tried to deflect attention to things, and so I didn't do a lot of coverage, all right? And so the day-to-day gets lost. All that to say, I don't remember a lot about particularly the early part of it, you know? Tour life is incredibly present, and it's heightened, and it's purposeful, and it's busy, all right? The way I frame it is, a week on the road feels like a month on the road. That's not true. A week on the road feels like a month of real life. So we're gone for 6 weeks, and those first shows do feel like 6 months ago, okay? It's like they're in your face, and then they're in your rearview mirror and gone, and you can't even contemplate them because the next thing is in your face, and that's every dang day. So, James, I can't give you 100% show-by-show rundown of what happened, but I can give you kind of the typical program, all right? So here's what typically happens on a typical road day. Let's say we got to drive 4 to 5 hours, okay? Usually load in at the next venue is going to be around 4:30, 5 o'clock, all right? So we got to be somewhere 4 or 5 hours away by, let's say, 4:30, all right? We got to leave ourselves time. So if it's a 4.5 hour drive, we're probably going to give ourselves 6 in the tour van, all right? So we're going to have to leave by like 10 a.m., let's say. And in a lot of hotels, we'd stay generally in hotels, B&Bs, hotels. Very civilized, man. It's not like touring here. Probably breakfast is ending 10 latest. Chances are we're heading to breakfast at like 9. You know, catch the very tail end of hotel breakfast. Buns and meat and cheese. Unless you're a vegetarian like my bandmates, Sarah and the great Kay Howell. Rougher. Eat the buns if you can. Ignore the butter. Just get on with it, right? Eat the breakfast. Get your stuff in the van. Van call's going to be like 10 o'clock. Then we're on the road. All right? Then we're going to drive the 5 or 6 hours it takes to do the 4.5 hour drive. Especially in Germany, you can count on a couple of Staus, all right? You know what a Stau is, kids? A Stau is a traffic jam, and you can count on being in a couple of them on das Autobahn, all right? It's going to happen, okay? So then we drive, stop at the, highway truck stop, the German equivalent or the Dutch equivalent of an en route here in Ontario. And it costs you 70 cents, 0.7 euro, to get through the turnstile to use the bathroom, but you collect your P-ticket on the way, which is a 50-cent voucher for the truck shop, you know, the little cafe, whatever's there. You can buy your food. You can buy some really great food at the truck stops, by the way. Get some really excellent coffee. Europe does coffee so well, kids. So you pay your 70 cents, you go in, you pee, you come back out with your ticket, you put 50 cents on a coffee so that in a couple hours you can do the whole thing again. And that's the cycle, man. And you drive. Depending on when you get into town, maybe you drop off at the hotel. Maybe you've got an hour. Maybe you got in at 3. Don't have to be anywhere until 4. So, you sit down. You probably take a nap. I would normally be doing tour blogs, but not this time. If we got enough time, we go out and find a pastry and a coffee. Take in the local flavor as much as we can. And so many of these places are utterly beautiful, man. They are medieval. places you've never even heard of. You walk around and you're like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And then by the end of the tour, you've seen so many beautiful places that what would have been the most beautiful place you've ever seen at the start of the tour, by the end, you hardly even notice. We get into these places like Marburg, Germany, which are medieval and elevated, legit. Not movie sets, right? And we see like students walking through who are like, I hate this place, man. It's so bored here. And we're like, what? This is the most beautiful place we've ever seen in our freaking lives. And people become blasé about it. But if you spend enough time there, you begin to understand, right? So if you're lucky, you get a pastry and a coffee and you sit in the town square and you catch the vibe and you know, that's it. If you're not lucky, you got like half an hour at the hotel. If you're going to the venue to eat, set up, and stay, then you've got to either pack your stage clothes or wear them. I get away with wearing them a lot of the time. My stage clothes are not all that elaborate. Elegant, sophisticated, classy, and cool, but not all that elaborate, right? So you load up what you need, you get in the van, you drive to the venue, then you begin to load in the gear. If it's one of those venues where you gotta, like we have a full PA rented with us, and so if we gotta do our own sound, then we gotta load in our own PA, the whole thing. Some of the venues are like that. Some of them you walk into, it's like a nice theater. They got a full setup going, maybe even drums in some cases. And they got a sound person, and, you know, there's that, and that's a good thing, man. It saves your load in and saves your load out. So we get there, we begin to set up. We probably order food shortly after we begin. The venues treat you very well in Europe, man. The venues will feed you. It's part of the contract. A lot of times they have food on site. A lot of times they have a restaurant next door that they will go to. They will supply your food. So you order that, and then they go off and take care of it. And, you know, as soon as you walk in the door, there is a drink in your hand of some variety. A stilles Wasser, or a gas Wasser, or a Coke Zero, or more likely, in the case of Kay and me, a little giddy glass of Rotwein. Great. Food is ordered, setting up, maybe sipping the Rotwein, and setup takes as long as it takes, depending on, you know, if you're doing your own sound or not. If you get set up pretty quickly and you've got a sound man, sound woman, sound person, and a sound system for the venue, you begin the sound check. And that can take anywhere from about 30 minutes to 7 hours. Depending on how things go, all right? Somewhere in the middle. And, you know, about 20 minutes into your sound check, the food arrives, and you can see it sitting on a table. And then some nights it sits there for an hour, and it's barely edible by the time you get to it. And sometimes it turns up right on time, and it's hot and delicious and wonderful. And we ate some outstanding food, drank some outstanding wine along the way, I must say. And so you do your sound check, it is what it is, and then let's say it's like 6:30. Let's say it's 6:30, you're sitting down to eat, sound check is done, doors might be at 8, you know? You got a little bit of time to fill, maybe doors are at 7:30, and then, you know, the crowd begins to enter. Depending on the venue, you might have a green room, you might not have a green room. If you're Sarah, even if there is a green room, chances are you're out there mingling with the fans, because that's how you build them, kids. One fan at a time by pressing the flesh, all right? Sarah's a master of that. You can see the results in her audience, all right? So you do that, and then you play the show. Most nights it's two-setter. In our case, the great Kay Howell, whose music you should be listening to. That's K-A-Y, Howell, H-O-W-L. Singer-songwriter extraordinaire, pianist, a savant, playing guitar on this tour, total badass. And she and Sarah are a dynamic duo up front, you know. So you're probably doing a two-setter, all right? So you're playing like a 45-minute set. You're taking what's going to turn into a half-hour break, so Sarah can go to the merch table, you know, and you can sort of take a break, press the flash, go backstage if you want to, get a drink. Then you're going to do another set. And then at the end of all that, in a perfect world, they're going to ask for an encore, which they always did. And sometimes you give them one whether they ask for it or not. And then you're going to do the encore, and then you're going to mingle with the people for another 45 minutes or something after the gig. Take some photos, maybe sign some stuff, you know. It's rare for me, but very, very common for Kay and Sarah to sign things. I don't sign a lot of stuff because people barely notice that I'm there. Because let's be honest, if you got Sarah Smith and Kay Howell standing in front of you, who's going to notice you're there, man? They wouldn't notice freaking Fabio, all right? You do all that stuff, and then at a certain point, the drummer who has got the most to tear down just feels a little bit of tingle in the spine. Hair begins to rise on the back of the neck, and that tingle says, hey man, better go tear down the stage. And so you walk up to the stage. If the show started at 8, it's probably 10:30, something like that. You begin to tear down the stage, all right? Pack up the drums. If you had your own PA, then you're wrapping cables, taking down the speakers, getting everything back where it belongs. And then, if you're lucky and you're Sarah Smith, by the end of this teardown process, there's a line of people waiting to take your gear to the van. Whoa. Not everybody has that, but her fans are so loyal that there'll be half a dozen of them or more waiting to carry our gear. And they know what they're doing better than we do by this point. And so most nights, on this tour at least, you will find me in the van at 11-ish. They'll be bringing stuff to me. I will be loading it into the van. And I'm not going to say anything more about that, except I did it well, okay? And so we'll do that, close the van, it's 11:30. Now we'll drive back to the hotel, and chances are Sarah's got some work to do, or she's tired from doing the show and driving. Sometimes she might hang out, sometimes not, you know. Kay and I will likely have a bottle of wine procured from the establishment or given to us by a fan. Happens all the time. We'll drink that wine. You know, it'll be 1:30 in the morning. And then it'll be time to go to bed. And then Kay will be up at 7 to go for a 5K run. And I'll be up at 7 to maybe shower. And then we'll catch the breakfast and off we go again. And that, James, is basically what we did for 6 weeks. All right? Change in some place names and some venues, and that's pretty much the game, man. But if you want to hear the nitty-gritty on how it works, go read any or all of the 3 tour blogs I wrote, 100,000 words, all about Sarah Smith's touring and what we do, what we get up to, and that's kind of the deal, all right? Ricky Slick! My old pal Ricky Slick, the bass guy, great bass player, really great dude, wrote in and he said, hey man, tell me about the importance of a good mic setup and, you know, the quality of the sound person and sound check on stage. What are my impressions of mic setups on drums and sound check and sound people? And my answer to that is, I just trust the sound man, dude. I don't know as much about the technical stuff as I probably should. And I'm going to make a point of trying to learn more about miking. A lot of the rooms that we play, we don't even have to mic the drums, okay? We mic the kick drum always. And that is not for volume. That is for tone, okay? You want the kick drum to be rumbly and full underneath. You can have the kick drum empty and just play it raw, and it will make a sound, but it will not have the depth and the roundness and the oomph that you want from your kick, all right? So a lot of rooms, we just mic the kick for that purpose. Now, we played bigger rooms where we mic everything. And in those rooms, we generally have a dedicated sound person. And my approach to sound is the sound person knows this room, the sound person knows these mics, the sound person knows what it sounds like front of house. I let the sound person do what the sound person does and do not get in the way. Do not play your drums while the sound man is miking them, all right? All you kid drummers out there, if the sound man is miking your kit, walk away. Or just sit there. Do not touch anything. Let the man or woman do the work, okay? What's important to me, sound check-wise, is my monitor mix, okay? Those of you who are not performers, if you're on stage, at most shows, well, if you go to big shows, you won't see this, but at most kind of club shows, you will see the big black wedge monitors, front of stage, speakers on the ground. pointing up at whoever's up front. And if you went around to the side of the stage and looked, you'll see one on the ground beside the drummer too. A big black triangle wedge. Okay, it's a speaker, it's a monitor, and what's going on in there is that the music basically is being broadcast through that monitor back at the people so they can hear it. If you play a big room and you do not have a stage monitor, especially as a drummer with cymbals and stuff clanging around you, chances are excellent that you won't be able to hear a dang thing. Hard to drum to can't hear a dang thing. So we're very lucky in that most of the rooms we played, I think all but one or two, they were big enough and they were equipped enough that I had my own monitor. Okay, now, in a perfect world, you get what you call your own monitor mix, okay? Which means what's coming out of my speaker is customized to me. What do I want in that speaker? I want bass guitar. In this case, it's a trio. I want Sarah's guitar. I want the bass coming off the keytar. In some rooms, I want kick drum. I want to be able to hear and feel that kick drum. Otherwise, to try and hear it, I'm going to hit it way too hard. It's going to burn out my foot. It's going to suck, all right? I like a mix of everything in my monitor so I can hear what's happening and play to it. And in a perfect world, it's loud. I like to be surrounded by sound. I don't like to feel like I have to be quiet. And if I'm surrounded by sound, I can play way more open, I can play way more loosely, and I can feel like I'm part of the music. So the important thing for me, Ricky Slick, if there's a sound person, I let the sound person do what he or she does and do not get in the way. I tap the kick drum when he or she says so. I tap the snare drum. I do the overheads. I just follow instructions, all right? Doing a sound check is not difficult. Just give the sound person what he or she asks for, all right? So I do that, but I like my monitor mix set up great. Sometimes you don't get that. Sometimes the monitor mixes are shared, and then you got to argue with your bandmates about what's in it and what isn't. Because not everybody likes everything, you know? Sometimes the singer just wants his or her vocal, you know? Or a little bit of guitar, whatever. Sometimes they just want that. And then if they got my monitor mix with everything in it, it's disorienting for them and too loud, that kind of thing. Monitor mix is a very individual thing, right? That's what I like. When I go into sound check and I have a sound person, I just let them do it. And I trust them. They are professionals. I am not. I play the drums. I don't do sound. You know what I mean? But I do like my monitor mix set up right. Now, our old friend Claudia DW, she asked a few fun questions, all right, that are going to be difficult for me to answer because of what I just said to James about not keeping a tour blog this time. But she asks, what was the best location? I think she means, what was the best venue, maybe, or what was the best place you visited? And everywhere's great when you're on tour in Europe, okay? There's something to love about everywhere, Claudia. What was the best room? We played some amazing rooms. The castle at Hardingsson. I mean, how many people get to say they played a 1,000-year-old castle twice? And in this case, it was my birthday, man. So it was a huge fete for the drummer in this very exotic and beautiful room. And we played a really good show. And that was a difficult day for me in some ways that I'm not going to go into here and now. But it was a real pick-me-up under the circumstances to play that space with those people and to be brought presents. And, you know, it's just like, it's very, very humbling and very, very sweet. And I needed it that day, you people. Those of you who know what was going on, thank you so much for that. So Hardingsson was great in terms of a location. And we played, this place in Bordesholm was amazing. We played some beautiful little theaters. We played this like bunker place that was awesome. And I can't remember the names of all the things or the places. You know what I mean? The best show. We had some great shows. Apeldoorn, Netherlands. Apeldoorn, Netherlands was the first place we played that was legit packed up in a rock club with standing dancing patrons. Most of the shows we played we played a lot of theaters, okay? We played a lot of sit-down rooms. That's great and dignified, and the shows are early, and I do like that. We had a great time. sometimes you want to cut loose just a little, man. And a lot of the time, cutting loose depends on the audience. You need that connection and feedback from the audience. So we get to Apeldoorn, Netherlands, lovely little town, lovely city. We walk into this awesome club called the Blues Cafe. Nice stage, it's vibey. It's a rock club, man. It's very cool. The place is packed out. We can play loud. We had a great sound man that night. Did an awesome job. We just set up and we could play loud and dig in. And we had a lot of friends there who we hadn't seen since the last tour, which is great. A lot of our Netherlands fans, our Frisian fans. And I say our, but it's Sarah's really. And, a lot of friendly faces. Packed out. First time we really got into a club that was packed out. That was like the old days, man. So Apeldoorn was great. And the proprietor of that venue reached into his private stash to give us a lovely bottle of wine. Thank you. Jan, I believe his name was. And when we were getting ready to load out after that show, the walkway, it was like a pedestrian mall out in front of the club, just packed wall to wall with kids. Drunk Dutch kids, man. And it was, the clinical term was a schmozzle. It was a schmozzle out there, man. Could not get the van down through this haywire. It was like a Saturday night. People are going off. There might have been a fight. Another Dutch Saturday night, whatever it was. And so it's like, we can't. It's like, there's just no freaking way. We can't carry the gear through this mess to the van. We can't get the van to us. And so we set it up with the club that we could leave the gear there overnight and come back on Sunday morning, after church, of course, to pick up the gear. Apeldoorn was a wonderful show. We played another gig with our good friends Grace Fire. I've talked about Grace Fire on the podcast before. You can find a Grace Fire track on the John Huff podcast, referenced on the podcast playlist. We hooked up a show with Grace Fire. I can't remember what town it was. Dude, there were so many towns. And that was another rock club in Germany. Grace Fire is such a great band. And I make a little cameo on their forthcoming record. They got a new record coming out in December, a full length. And there's a song on there called It's My Choice. And last year, they wrote to me and said, hey, man, would you sing backups on It's My Choice? And I said, yes, I will, Grace Fire, because I love you, all of you. And so I did that. And so I got a chance to go up front and perform that song with Grace Fire. And I tried my best, okay? I've not seen the footage, but it was fun. And it was a rock club. And afterwards, we had a really fun after party with the band. And it's like, they're just great. Go listen to Grace Fire. I love the name of that band. They are super freaking cool. A great band. And we had a great show with them. And that was a great one. But I'm going to single out the last act, kids, right? I'm going to single out the very final show in Rees, Germany. That's Rees, at this wonderful little club in Rees that we've played before. And I'm going to single that one out because it was the largest single gathering of Sarah fans that I've ever seen. Like our friends. Calling them fans is in some ways a disservice. They're our friends now. The people who follow us around, the people who come to 19 shows, the people who carry the gear, the Netherlands contingent, the German contingent, so many of them were there. Like 80 people in this room, and probably fully half of them were our friends. And it was the last night of the tour, and there were some people there who we hadn't seen yet. And that's when Nikki, the artist, brought me my drumsticks to try, and I played the whole freaking show on them, and it was great. Amazing. People can do amazing stuff, man, for which they do not get enough attention or credit, all right? I go up and play the drumsticks. Everybody thinks I'm some kind of hero. They don't, but they notice I exist. Nikki made the drumsticks, which probably took more skill than I displayed using them. Nobody even knows. So I'm telling you now that Nicole Montpellier, made those freaking sticks, and they were dynamite. That was touching. Towards the end of the show, we were done the show. I think we'd done encores, and it was just this warm feeling, seeing all of these people, the culmination of this tour, really for me, the culmination of 4 years of touring with Sarah over there. Seeing this group of people together was very, very heartwarming, and then they serenaded us. They sang thanks for the music to us, and how sweet is that? How freaking touching is that, you know? And I just felt we played a really good show for our friends. And Race, I don't know if you were around, Claudia, but we also live streamed that. That one went live to the world, actually, I think on Facebook. And I don't know, maybe the footage still exists out there. I'm not sure. But Race was a great show. In terms of location, cities, Marburg, Germany is breathtaking. And Germany's so beautiful that nobody's even heard of Marburg. Like, we're walking around this place. There's like a huge monastery at the top of a hill, you know. We climb all the way up, and it's medieval. The whole neighborhood is medieval. Legit! Not a movie set. The real freaking thing. The cobblestone, the buildings, they're ancient. And we're just sitting there drinking coffee going, are you serious? This exists? It's magnificent, and nobody's even heard of it. That's how great it is in other places. You know what I mean? We climbed up to the castle in Nuremberg. That was amazing. Loved it. You know, we were in so many places. Schmallenberg, just these ancient, beautiful places. But Marburg really stood out to us, and we had a really fun show there, too. And so I'm going to say Marburg was probably the place of the tour. Just for that reason. We haven't been there before. We didn't know it existed. Kay and I went for a little walk, and we said to the guy, the concierge at the hotel, we're like, well, where do we go? And he's like, go right. Actually, it was the dude at the venue. He's like, just go right. Had we gone left, we would have missed all that, man. But we went right, and we walked up the hill, and then stepped back in freaking time. So Marburg was really amazing. The other question, this is a fun one, that Claudia wanted to know is, did you learn any new German words? Now, I got to tell you, I've been working diligently on the Deutsch, okay? And I was able to actually have loose conversations, real ones, with people in Germanglish, all right? But I was able to do it, and I was picking up stuff. I've been working on this, okay? So I learned two related things that are very important, all right? I learned how to say, können wir eine Flasche Rotwein kaufen? Which means, can I buy a bottle of red wine? Can we buy a bottle of red wine? And then the other word I learned was besoffen, which basically means wasted. So I learned that, all right? And in every venue, you know, I would go up and say that to the bar staff, and they would just give us a bottle. Sometimes, like in Apeldoorn, which is not where you say that because it's in the Netherlands, you know, he went into his private stash. He didn't even give me the house wine. He went, just like, wait, and he disappeared. And then he came back with a better bottle. People were so freaking generous to us, and we drank some outstanding wine, man. Primitivo. Primitivo was the grape of the tour. It's big over there, all right? For those of you who are North Americans, Primitivo is fundamentally a Zinfandel. And if you go onto my Instagram, JW_Huff, and check out my Wine Friday shows, you'll learn a little bit, as I'm learning a little bit, about red wine, okay? So that's a tip. Friday nights, Wine Friday on my Instagram feed, okay? The great Laura Gagnon, marvelous pianist, marvelous singer-songwriter, marvelous human being, says, what's your best touring hack? Now, Laura has been all over the place on the road, touring with the McCartney years, the McCartney tribute, you know, amazing, and doing other road work. And she said that she learned how to make a toilet in the back of the van. I want to know about that, and I kind of don't want to know about that. You know what I mean? What's my best touring hack? I don't have a lot of touring hacks, okay? But I did figure out one. And the one touring hack I can give you, which I think Laura and a lot of other, you know, front people aren't going to dig too much, is I only take one pair of shoes, okay? First year I went, I took a pair of, like, sneakers, you know, your sneakers for the exercising. And I also took, like, stage shoes, you know what I mean? Like, I had a couple pairs of shoes. They take up an enormous amount of space in your freaking luggage, man. So I went out for the second trip, and I got an all-purpose pair of shoes. Shoes I can live in, shoes I can work out in, supposing I work out, which is rare, and I can drum in. So for those of you who are drummers, and you're like, how do I save space in my luggage? Go get a pair of shoes that works for everything, okay? Now, Kay Howell, I put this question to her, and she had a great one on this tour, and the answer is Febreze, man. Kay, when we got to Deutschland, maybe it was even in the Netherlands, when we first arrived, she got her hands on a bottle of Febreze. There are 3 things that you take full advantage of every time you get the chance on the road, okay? They are a shower, they are a bathroom, they are laundry facilities. You don't often get the laundry, all right? You know, on this tour, I had to do the hand washing. It's like, I don't know, man. Socks and underwear, vitals, gotta wash them up, you know, in the hotel sink. Ain't that fun, kids? Ain't that fun? Touring is so exotic. Kay had the bright idea to get the bottle of Febreze, the can of Febreze, man. So at the end of the night, take off your stage clothes, whatever. Give them a Febreze. They're good to go, man. And that is a wonderful tour hack. So I don't know how Laura makes a toilet in the back of a van. Gonna find out, though. I say take 1 pair of shoes if you can and get yourself a can of Febreze, all right? Moving right along, we got a question from our old pal Theo. Theo, who is connected to that race gig. That gig was the best, man. It was my favorite gig of the whole freaking tour. Theo says, did your driver put the hammer down on the Autobahn? And the answer is 9. A, it wouldn't matter anyways. The van doesn't go fast enough to make it worthwhile. Here's the thing. You North American people have heard the legend of the Autobahn, all right? That is not a highway. It is, maybe you call it the Autobahn, but there is not an Autobahn, all right? The Autobahn is the name for the entire kind of German national highway system, right? If you're in Ontario, it's like the 400 series highways. That's our Autobahn, all right? And contrary to popular belief, you cannot drive without a speed limit on all sections of the Autobahn, all right? There are sections where you can. And if you're in a tour van, you stay in the middle or even on the right. Because if you're in the fast lane, you better watch out, kids, because people are coming so fast, you don't even have time to react. It's like there's nobody, and then there's a dude on your butt. They drive so fast. And I've had the experience many times of we're just driving along in the van, middle lane, and then a car whooshes past me like it's freaking Formula One. It's astounding. And you think, that's the fastest car I've ever seen. And then 30 seconds later, one goes by faster. This happens all the time. Those dudes and ladies are flying on those sections of the Autobahn. But what happens is you'll be flying along no speed limit, and then there'll just be a series of signs that say 120 or 110 or whatever, depending on what lane you're in. And brother, if you're not doing that speed, you're toast, because they got speed cameras everywhere. You will get nailed. So you do not go far above the speed limit on the Autobahn system, because in most places there is one. And if you're going above it, you are euchred, my friends. You will get punched. And so no, we didn't punch the van because we will get arrested. The van doesn't go fast enough to make it fun, and the harder you punch it, the more gas you're going to use, man. So we have to be very, very cautious driving with our speed to avoid tickets and to avoid the gas, man. Sarah does the driving. She and Van are one. I've seen her parallel park that thing with an inch on either side. It's bananas. Sarah and Van are one, you know, man, she's great at it. And kudos to her, because I don't freaking want to do it. I got one more question. We're sneaking up on an hour already. I've got one more question, and it's a tough one, okay? And it comes from my dear friend Lexi. Lexi, who has been there from moment freaking one. Lexi is one of my favorite people in all of Europe. And her partner, Kirsten, is the booking agent for these tours. And Kirsten did an amazing job. She was not a booking agent 4 years ago, my friends. But over the course of Sarah's tours, she's become one. With her own business, and she's doing this, and then COVID freaking happens and, you know, cuts her off at the knees, but it's ramping back up. Kirsten and Lexi, for whom we all feel the utmost affection. Lexi asks a big one, man. She says, how does it feel to step back into normal life, air quotes, after the intensity of touring. Normal life where nobody claps or cheers when you do the dishes or take out the trash. Well, I got to stop you right there, Lexi, because I took out the trash last night and they were lined up down the street to clap for me, okay? It's like, wow, that guy actually does things? Amazing! What's it like coming home off of 5 weeks on the road? The answer to that question is it's really freaking hard. Straight up. Touring is life at full volume. Touring is life accelerated. Touring is such a heightened existence. When you're on the road and your aspiration is to be a musician, you're doing it, man. Life is so purposeful because every day you're doing the thing. You're so busy. You're so busy. Even if you're just riding in the van, you're always doing something with a sense of purpose. You're always going somewhere. You're always on a deadline. You're always doing the thing. But then, when it comes to showtime, you're doing the thing that you love to do and you want so desperately to do. And so you spend 5 or 6 glorious weeks really living the freaking dream, man. And everything is so accelerated. I can't make you understand until you go on the road what a freaking time warp it is. Stuff that happened a week ago quite literally feels like months ago. It's in your face and then it's gone. And you cannot reflect on it because the next thing is in your face. And so you live this accelerated, heightened, purposeful existence. You wake up every day and you're like, I'm doing the thing. And then one day you're not on tour anymore. That's how it works. You don't count down. You don't really see the end coming. You don't have time for that. What happens is you're on tour, and then one day you're not. And the come down from that, the come down from the accelerated pace, the come down from the heightened sense of living, the come down from the purpose is really, really intense. And it has, in me before, caused depression. I've gone into really, really dark holes coming off of tours when I wasn't experienced enough to know that was coming, and I wasn't experienced enough to know what to do about it. The black hole that came off the first tour was maybe months. The black hole off of this tour was a day. And that's because of a lot of things, but you begin to learn that this is going to happen. Life is going to just stop. It's like you fly through a windshield and then just roll down the street. It's like, whoa, what happened? We were moving along and now it's over. Now this purpose I was living is gone. Now this accelerated exotic life I was leading is gone. And I'm just sitting here in silence again. And the first time I got very depressed because I did not have a lot of gigs lined up. This is 2017. Coming back in off the road, Sarah, Ken, Denny, they all had gigs, lots of them. They come home, the air changes a little bit, but there's no time to think about it, man. It's like we got 20 gigs coming, off they go. I had nothing, basically. I had 1 or 2. And so I had gone from this heightened, accelerated, I'm living the dream life to I have no gigs, the dream is over, I can't survive financially. Like that happened, and I dropped off a cliff. So when I went on the next tour, when I came home, I was like, okay, I need a project, man. It was the same deal, I came back, I didn't have gigs really lined up. When you're a drummer for hire, you can't commit to bands easily. You know what I mean? And so, I would do maybe 1 or 2 extended kind of tours a year, but then be booked up kind of every weekend through the summer, through the spring, playing with Sarah, playing with somebody, getting hired, You can't commit to a band. Most often, your indie band is not a money-making device, all right? It's a pet project and it's fun and you might get paid. I hope you do. But it's not something that you're investing in as a career necessarily. But if you're a musician for hire, it's your gig. And so you can't be relied upon as a band member. That's why I wound up leaving Hiroshima Hearts and Lindsay and the Lonelies, and some of the other things I was in. It's because I couldn't be counted on, because if somebody's going to pay me to go away for 2 weeks, I got to go. Got to go, you know? And so the problem with that is that if nobody's hiring, you're not playing, man. And so I started the podcast because I freaking needed something that was mine. I needed something that did not depend on the whim or schedule of someone who could hire me, you know? And I was freelancing and I continue, but it's like I need something that I can own that's mine, you know? And my advice to side players who have this experience, the rise and fall of touring, have a thing. Have a thing that is yours. Even if it's just a musical project that's yours. When you come back off the road, you can dedicate yourself to a thing that's yours, that does not depend on anyone else but you, you know? You can't be fired from it. You can't be not given the gig for that. It's your thing, you know? I built the podcast for that reason, because I had enough experience to know that if I don't have a thing, if I don't have some distraction, if I don't have something to give a purpose to, when I come in off the road, I'm going to crash and it's going to be ugly. And you kind of always, in my case, come in off the road wondering, and it's worse now than ever because of COVID, you come in off the road wondering, can I continue to do this? Financially, can I continue to do this? That becomes a very, very heavy weight, man. Especially if you come in and you just don't have gigs lined up. I'm not in a position most times where I do. Right now, nobody is. You know, there's just not a lot of gigs happening in Canada, you know? So it's tough, Lexi, to fall off a bit of a cliff. And the only way to deal with that is to occupy yourself. So I'm making coffee dates with everybody. You know, I've had lunch with different people, go for drinks, whatever. I'm reconnecting with people, you know, distracting myself from a little bit from reality. But I've also grown a lot, all right? My ego collapse last summer kind of rebirthed me as a person who allows, as a person who trusts in something bigger and higher and more powerful than me. And so I'm better at letting things go and saying something will come up, and something will, you know, but it's not the applause factor. I've never been in it for the applause factor. Most of the applause is not directed at the side players. You know what I mean? We're not really in the spotlight. So it's not like I miss having attention paid to me. It's not that remotely. It's missing the sense of purpose. And it's missing the sense of possibility, because when you're on the road, obviously, it's possible to be on the road. When you're making music and getting paid for it, and it's possible to make music and get paid for it. You know what I mean? When you're suddenly not in that situation anymore, it's very easy to lose sight of that. When you begin to lose sight of purpose, man, that's when you begin to fall off the cliff. So it's tough, Lexi, but I've shortened that from a few months' experience to one day, which was Monday last week, when things were too quiet and I was in the house alone and I panicked just a little, all right? But I'm savvy enough to know when that's coming and to be able to respond to it. So those are the questions I got. Thank you so much, all of you people who sent in questions about the touring. If the rest of you have questions about touring, drumming, podcasting, music, whatever, send it to me and I'll try my best to answer them. Now, the one question I didn't get asked, which would have been a nice segue, is, what was the soundtrack, man? What were you listening to? And I'll give you the quick answer, all right? There were two songs that were fundamentally the soundtrack to this tour for me. One was Hunter's Moon, the new single by Ghost. Freaking love Ghost. They released Hunter's Moon, the first single with Papa 4, as I was on the road, and what a great freaking song. Go listen to that. And the title track from the brand new War on Drugs record, I Don't Live Here Anymore, dropped right about the time we went out. And I played it on repeat. I probably listened to that song 200 times in 6 weeks. And I'm not exaggerating. That song affected me in ways that few songs affect me. I Don't Live Here Anymore by the War on Drugs. And conveniently, that album was released last Friday. probably shouldn't even talk about it now because we're at like an hour and it's time to go. But I've talked so much about the war on drugs. This band, I discovered this band via Denny on, maybe it was probably the 2019 tour. You know, we'd get to our hotel, we'd have an hour or two. Denny would always put on music. We roomed together. Denny would always put on music, and I just noticed this band playing on that tour. Every time he'd set up his little speaker, this music would come on. It was the same one every time, and I just would always twig to this certain song, which turned out to be the song Pain by the War on Drugs. And I loved it. And then I purchased the album, A Deeper Understanding, which won a freaking Grammy, and I was blown away. And I had instantly a new one of my favorite bands ever, which is the War on Drugs. So I've been waiting patiently for years for their new record. COVID delayed it. It is now out, and if A Deeper Understanding was a masterpiece, then I Don't Live Here Anymore is also a masterpiece. There is a run of songs on that record. War on Drugs is an art rock band. I cannot describe them to you except to say this is not radio music. All right, this is deep, beautiful, sad, cool. It's just wonderful. Think of Arcade Fire, think of The National, think of art rock bands, not radio bands, all right? This is alt music. And the War on Drugs is fast becoming one of my favorite bands ever. Like, legit. And this record, here's what I want you to do. If you haven't listened to the War on Drugs, I want you to go to Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you pirate music from. Go purchase it. Purchase the MP3s. For crying out loud, send the band some money. I want you to go. I want you to give yourself like 13 minutes, all right? I want you to listen to 3 songs that appear on the record back to back to back. Those songs are I Don't Want to Wait, Victim, and the title track, I Don't Live Here Anymore. Just do me that favor, kids. If you love me, if you love the podcast, go and listen to I Don't Want to Wait, Victim, and I Don't Live Here Anymore, back to back to back. If that's your first exposure to the War on Drugs, that's the exposure I want you to have, okay? There's a run of like 6 songs, and that's a block in the middle of it, that are just dynamite. Just next freaking level, man. This is such a great band. This is such a great record. I'm so excited about it. I've been listening to it pretty much nonstop since Friday. And I might talk more about it on another episode. I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, I Don't Live Here Anymore by the War on Drugs. If you're not listening to that band, you should be listening to that band, all right? Go out there and do that for me, all right? Just listen to those 3 tracks. I want to know what you think. And I want to know what you're listening to. And I'm going to sign off now, man, because I didn't think that this would take nearly as long as it has. Me flapping my gums for the first time in 7 weeks. I want to thank you for hanging. Sorry I was gone. I wanted to do episodes along the way, and it just didn't work out. It's not easy to do, man. You're in hotels and stuff. I can't be, it's too confined. It doesn't work, you know what I mean? But I'm back now. We'll see what happens in the future. Drop me a line. JOHN-HUFF.com. Instagram at JW_Huff is where a lot of the action happens. I do cross post to the John Huff Podcast Facebook page. And hey, do me a freaking favor. If you have not left a rating and review on your preferred podcast platform, please do it, man. Warms my cockles, gives me a little boost, helps the program grow. Still trying to make a thing out of this, all right? I want to thank you for listening. I hope you've come this far. Take care. Check out Wine Friday on Friday nights, Friday evenings on my Instagram page. Listen to the War on Drugs. Listen to Ghost. Tell me what you're listening to. Remember that good things do happen when you put yourself out there, man. If you take nothing from my tour experience, take the possibility, all right? Take the potential because it exists, all right? I'm going to stop this now because I got to edit. Time's a wasting. And I'll check you later. Yeah. Can't think of anything else to say.